Hi, my name is Maureen Neiman, and I am an evolutionary biologist who is appointed by the Departments of Biology at the University of Iowa, as well as the Department of Gender, Women, and Sexuality Studies. I got started in my interest as a scientist, like so many of us do, as a child. I've always been fascinated by variation and finding patterns in that variation. When I was little, I was especially interested in variation within the natural world. Why do some maple seeds fly better than others, or what makes some ants queens and others workers? As a teenager, popular science books with a focus on biology by authors like E.O. Wilson and Carl Sagan provided an amazing example of the lives of scientists, an example that I wanted to follow. I'm grateful to my parents for providing these resources, as well as prioritizing intellectual pursuits. I now view my role as a scientist in part is to help to provide the resources and the example for others who might not share that privilege. I was privileged to attend a small liberal arts college, Carleton, with small classes and a distinct emphasis on hands-on engagement with primary literature and scientific writing. This type of exposure to primary scientific literature and some of the biggest problems in science allowed me to get engaged with my focus now in the evolution of sex 20 years ago as a college student. In particular, as a junior, I read Mark Wrigley's popular science book, The Red Queen, which introduced me to the so-called paradox of sex. I was fascinated by this question, which had published biologists for over a century. Why do almost all multicellular organisms use sex to produce offspring when asexual reproduction is so much simpler and less costly? As a 20-year-old, I was naive and arrogant enough to dream about being the one to finally figure out sex. My senior year, like all other Carleton seniors, I had to write a thesis in response to one of a set of big picture questions posed by the biology faculty. One of these questions was indeed why sex was so common, and I dove right in. I soon found that one of the most prominent figures in the sex debate was an evolutionary biologist from Indiana University named Kurt Lively, who had discovered that attack from parasites likely played a major role in the maintenance of sex in a fascinating New Zealand snail species. Dr. Lively and his snails had also been featured in the Red Queen book, and in an odd coincidence was a close friend of one of my faculty members at Carleton, Mark McCone. At this point, I was planning to apply to graduate school to pursue a Ph.D. in evolutionary biology, and Mark thought that Kurt would be a really good fit for me as a mentor. I agreed, applied to Indiana, and was thrilled when I was admitted. Kurt and I really were a great fit as a mentor-mentee pair, and I had a really fun and productive graduate student career. Kurt and I actually still collaborate today. 20 years later, I'm still working on the problem of sex, and I'm still studying these amazing little snails. While we've made a lot of progress, I've now come around to the realization that I, and probably not any other single person, is not going to solve the sex problem. It's just too big of a question to have a simple answer. And in a related point, I now expect that the answer to the sex problem will probably vary across species and environments, an appropriately messy solution to one of the most complex and important of all biological phenomena. When it comes to advice for early career scientists, one of the most important points that I'd like to convey is when it comes to how critical we are when it comes to evaluating science. While it's indeed incredibly important to evaluate science critically, sometimes it feels like we're taught that our role is simply that, to be critical, of papers, of our peers, to find fault in everything. It's just as important, if not more so, to recognize that science is hard and to validate others, including yourself, who do good quality science. Go out of your way to find the value in the science and in your colleagues. On a related note, push yourself, even when it's scary, to develop positive and supportive connections with your peers and colleagues. It's both a lot more fun this way, and it will prove enormously beneficial for your career going forward to build a network of friends and supporters around you. One of the best ways to do this is, when you can, say yes to career building and fun service opportunities, things like granted paper review or meeting organization. This type of professional service is often fun and is a really powerful way to learn, and it will raise your profile while connecting you to great people in your field.